will adhere to the judgment and implement all its 11 orders. The ANC has full confidence that the National Assembly will also fully adhere to the judgment and implement it, and the ANC members in Parliament to deliberately act inconsistently with the Constitution. We have thus noted, welcome and appreciate the apology by the President to the nation this evening. To us, that is quite important that the President humbled himself and apologized to the nation. The ANC calls on all South Africans with an interest in this very important matter to first do the very basic thing, read and familiarize themselves with the judgment in order to understand the complexities that the Constitutional Court had dealt with, and the judgment to dealt with the judgment, because of its balanced and comprehensive nature, does not give rise to the disproportionate reaction of the opposition parties, nor does it give rise to the call for impeachment. Our view is that there's overreaction on the part of the opposition parties. There is also an element of sensationalization of the judgment. The call for impeachment is nothing new, nor is it genuine. It is an ongoing election platform ploy resuscitated every single year by the opposition in the form of either a vote of no confidence or now the impeachment call. So from where we're seated, we are not surprised by the opposition calling for impeachment. They've done that two months ago, where they called for a vote of no confidence, which collapsed. What the ANC views as being most urgent now is the implementation of the judgment. We welcome the clarity it provided on a number of issues, specifically the role of the public protector, the separation of powers, the right of Parliament to scrutinize the reports tabled to it, and of those with findings by the public protector against them, right to judicial review. We think that clarity is quite helpful for all of us. Moving forward, the ANC has a responsibility and duty to acknowledge and confront the current political environment our country is facing. We are extremely weary of the attempts by the opposition parties and some section of our population who are eager for and encouraging the ANC to tear itself apart. You know, I listened to some leaders of the opposition parties saying to the ANC, do the right thing, fire Zuma. Basically, a call on the ANC to tear itself apart. That is how we understand that call by the opposition forces. And this is an antithesis to foundation of unity that the ANC and our country is built on, and will thus be uncompromisingly resisted by the ANC. We are not going to play to the gallery. We are not going to do what will make our opposition forces to the ANC happy. We are going to do what we think should be done and be able to engage with those who want to find solutions. The ANC extends an invitation to any sector of society which wishes to engage the ANC on this or any other matter. The ANC appeals to all members and structures of the ANC, our alliance partners, and sectors of society interested in finding a solution to the challenges facing society to engage us rather than standing at a distance and shouting at each other. We don't think it is helpful that we all stand in our corners and shout at each other. We must get our heads together, engage. If you want to engage us, we'll come. So any sector of society, be it the church, be it the media, be it the traditional leaders, be it anybody, we will be ready to engage any sector that want to engage us on these matters. The Working Committee of the ANC shall hold an extended meeting on Monday, 4th April, to discuss the judgment, its implication, and the concerns of our people. We will also be meeting with various sectors of society in the coming weeks. Members and supporters of the ANC and our country at large must regard the Constitutional Court judgment as the completion and the closure of what has been a long and difficult process for our nation. In a constitutional democracy such as ours, it is expected that when there are contesting views in society, our robust judiciary will be called upon as the final arbiter on all matters brought before it. This, therefore, is a victory for our young democracy and complete expression that the systems we created to safeguard and promote our young democracy are alive and strong. We ask that our cadres must close ranks and focus their energies on serving the people of South Africa, delivering on their aspiration while uniting us around the common program to build a united and non-racial, non-sex, democratic and prosperous society. Let me just add that, as we said, we'll be having an extended NWC meeting on Monday. An extended NWC meeting, for those who do not know what it means, is an NWC meeting open to all NSA members of the ANC to come. Number two, we will be talking to the political committee of the ANC in Parliament and caucus on Tuesday. And after that, we will be beginning a process of engaging provinces and regions of the ANC, and we'll meet our alliance partners, and in the process meet the stakeholders who are interested in engaging the ANC on any of these matters. That is how prepared we are to engage on the matter. It's not a simple matter. It's not just a question of taking an emotional decision. It is about thinking through the issues, processing us. You are going to be bored by this approach on our part. We think that the responsibility of running an organization, and ironically that has become the governing party, is forcing us never to take decisions on our feet and just run on the base of emotions. It imposes an obligation on us to deal with issues in detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade SG. We're going to take a round of questions. We're going to take 5 in this first round and then come back for a next round if there's follow-ups. If you could introduce your name, and I've noted you 1, Karina number 2, gentleman in front number 3, number 4. Is there another hand? Yes, sir, you're number 5. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, you can proceed.
Good evening, SG.
Mm-hmm.
When you say, SG, the call to let go of the president is a call for the ANC to tear of itself or tear itself apart, does that mean the ANC equals or sets itself up to be equal to the illegality that the Constitutional Court had said that President Zuma had committed?
Okay. Karina number 2.
It's Karina Pasti, I'm here from my Guardian. I have 2 questions for you. The one question is, in the top 6 meeting today, was there unanimity about the course of action, or was there a robust debate between the officials?
There was unanimity.
Okay, and my second question is, the Constitutional Court made some damning findings about Parliament. At some point it said what the members of Parliament did amounted to taking the law into their own hands. What action will there be in the ANC caucus? Because so implies that there should be some kind of action to either educate or discipline.
In front of you.
Franz Wild from Greenwood. Secretary General, Polly just referenced the Constitutional Court ruling. I think the President in his speech, he apologized for the confusion. He didn't apologize for the actions, I believe. Do you feel that the President has taken responsibility for what the Concourt describes as failing to uphold the Constitution.
We had a hand number 4 was here. Okay, we can start there and then we'll finish here. Behind you, Nati. Thank you.
I would like to ask you what kind of finding would the Constitutional Court have to make in a matter like this that would lead to the resignation of the President? And I'm asking that in conjunction with the finding that Charlie mentioned about it was a serious breach of his oath of office. What in the President's announcement tonight and what you said will give effect to that finding of the court that he was in breach of his oath of office and failed to uphold the Constitution? Secondly, I'd like you to tell us what are you going to say to the caucus on
Thank you. If we could move the microphone to the bottom.
Very hard to decide who productions. Two questions. It seems, looking back over the last 5-6 years, that there have been a number of bald-faced lies told about the income issue, the bond, a number of other stories, Minister of Public Works, no state money was used. The list goes on. This is, I think, the 6th sort of scandal our President's been involved in. Seems a bit scandal prone. Will he be addressing the election manifesto launch in PE on the 16th of April?
Thank you very much. Bala.
Karen, I interjected and said there was unanimity. There is a Twitter circulated by Julius Malema that there was a call for the President to resign and so forth. Those are manufactured stories. So I want to emphasize that. That is a manufactured story. There was no such a thing in the meeting of the officials. So I'm emphasizing to you that there was unanimity. It is a call. Let me explain two things. Here is an issue which is disputed in society. It's taken to the apex court as the final arbiter. And the apex court settles the matter. It makes a determination. Then immediately people call for the ANC to fire its president. Okay? Now, many of you are old journalists. When I say you are calling for the ANC to tear itself apart, I would imagine that you will have witnessed our previous experience. That went with what you are calling for. So my own view is that opposition forces are making that call knowingly, that it is a call for the ANC to tear itself apart. And let me explain this further by saying it would be a sick organization which will take action because the main opposition party is calling for it, or EFF is calling for it, and other parties are calling for it. There's no party that works that way. Because if it works that way, there will be no party left. Now, what we want to do, that's why I'm giving you the program that we're going to follow. We are calling on all sectors of society that are unhappy to talk to us and engage us. Because when we sit across the table, we'll understand the thinking of these sectors of society. But when we all shout in the media, we'll never understand each other on this matter. So that's why the call is for sectors of society that are interested in engaging the ANC to come forward and engage us, talk to us directly. That includes the media. If the media want to talk to us, please come and engage with us. Whether you send a SANEF or any other structure in the media, we'll talk to that structure. Findings on Parliament. What will happen in the caucus? Somebody asked me, what will we say in the caucus? Strange. When we go to the caucus of the ANC, or we go to the NEC, or go to the NWC, or go to the National General Council or the Conference of the ANC, we don't go up and say, this is what we're going to say. The closest we come to is to say, these are the issues. When you go to a policy conference or the national conference, we circulate the document up front. But what is never circulated up front is the report to that structure. So a call for us to say, what will we say in the caucus, is actually daring, to say the least, because it is saying, there is no ANC, tell us, we'll speak for you. We are saying on Tuesday we'll be talking to the caucus of the ANC on this matter. Now, if you want to understand the content of what we're going to the ANC, I think that is daring, to say the least. The President apologized to the nation on behalf of himself and government. And I think if there are people who want to dissect that apology further, it would make sense to actually engage the President further. I don't think he will close doors to the media. You can go and dissect that apology. We are comfortable with the fact that he has apologized. What finding will lead to the resignation of the President? It's a strange question, I could say, in the sense that this question says to us, the ANC must be working on a program for its president to resign. That is the essence of that question. That the ANC must sit in its structures, work on a program for its president to resign. So I think it's a strange question from where I'm seated. What I'm saying, the EFF asked for a particular declaratory order. DA asked for a particular declaratory order. The court did not make that declaratory order. They asked specifically for particular declaratory order, which Senior Counsel Nkandla said that declaratory order that is asked for is in preparation for impeachment. And the court has not made that declaratory order. If that declaratory order was made as requested, maybe we would be having a different discussion. So I am sure it makes the distinction between that declaratory order and how far the court has gone. This is not consistent with this. That's not a declaratory order. They have not got the declaratory order, but they will actually articulate the judgment as if it has given that declaratory order, which it has not. Because if that declaratory was given, it would suit their program. Now it's not there. Lastly, many lies have been told about Nkandla, and many half-truths and truths have been called by many other people who develop narratives around Nkandla. You're right, because you'll say Minister X and Minister told lies. Narrative that has been developed around Nkandla, many of them are truths and half-truths. It's fine with me. That's how society works. That's how the media works. And you should not resent that. The media can tweak issues and come up with any statement. We live with that. But to ask a question whether he will address the manifesto launch on the 16th of April, we are launching our manifesto in Port Elizabeth. Every member of the media is invited to come. It's not a manifesto launch of President Jacob Zuma. It's the manifesto launch of the African National Congress for local government elections. You are all invited to come. Yeah. We've done that. Take the next one.
Okay, can I get new hands? Number 1, number 2, number 3 to last season, number 4, number 5 at the back, the gentleman at the back. If we do still have time, we'll come back for the other hands. We can start there, thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's Goldwyn Whittles from Eyewitness News. I'd just like to reflect on the political implications of this judgment, and I wanted to find out, as we go to the local government elections, has President Jacob Zuma's behavior as president become a liability for the ANC's efforts to win votes? And I want to find out another question. So there's analysis that says that Parliament should be dissolved because the MPs of Parliament have been found to have violated the Constitution, and therefore it is no longer a legitimate body. I'd just like to find out what the ANC's view is on that analysis.
Thank you.
You speak about the opposition parties wanting the ANC to take itself up. Are you saying that you're going to put the ANC ahead of the country by not recording the
opposition parties are not a country. Opposition parties don't constitute a country. But continue.
Then secondly, you speak about half-truth and lies. Are you saying there was any untruthness in what the Constitutional Court judgment said?
Sorry, ma'am. Pauline.
Sorry, you did not answer my first question. We've heard a lot of focus on the opposition yesterday, but I wanted to ask, does the ANC equals itself, does it approve the illegal conduct, the violation of the Constitution? And then I have a second question.
Pauline, can you respect also the processes of the press briefing? You have not been noted.
I'm just wanting to ask.
But you are not noted.
You are not noted. I said we would come back, please.
If it was Parliament, would say you are not recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, SG. SG, I'm going to take you up on this, on your suggestion that what the opposition parties are calling for is disproportionate. You even used the word overreaction. SG, we have a situation where the tripod that holds our society together, where you have the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, two of those legs have been found to have not lived up to their constitutional imperatives. I don't know if that's an overreaction, and I wouldn't say it's only on the part of opposition parties. So I don't know, I want you to clarify that, because I suspect this will be a big talking point that you're saying that they're overreacting. And then secondly, a question linked to the one that Karabo asked, in terms of putting the ANC ahead. You talk here about the fear of the ANC tearing itself apart. What is it exactly that you okay, it's not a fear, it's a concern. Let's call it a concern. Concern that the opposition is asking for the ANC to tear itself apart. But are you hearing the voices that are inside the ANC, that are growing louder and louder inside? It's not unanimous by any means, but there are voices inside, it's not opposition. And also it brings back that question, like, what is it that you feel that it will happen if you ask the president to step aside, having violated the Constitution? Spell it out for us so that we understand. Thank you.
Number 4 at the back.
The first question is, perhaps besides the opposition and voices, also discuss the voices of those ANC stalwarts that have also come out and spoken quite loudly about the need for the president to be recalled or to be asked to step down. The second question is, does the ANC believe it also owes the public an apology as you speak about the president apologizing on behalf of himself and the executive from coming and given that by extension the ANC caucus, if we were to practice the constitutional court of business, had failed to hold the executive to account. Thank you.
My last hand, gentleman next to you, Karen.
Some members, to the British Parliament from the Daily Maverick, some members of the opposition have basically promised a shutdown of Parliament should the President not be recalled by the ANC. What is your sort of strategy going forward with that? And also, what are you going to say to the voters come the election process?
The second one?
What are you going to say to the voters in the coming election?
What are you going to say to the voters when you get to election? Did you take the left when you come back from around?
No, let me answer.
Okay.
Those who have not come to the media briefings will not know that I normally apologize for the slowness in writing because I'm more skilled in drilling a rock than in writing. So, my apology again. As we go to local government election, is JZ the president of the ANC liability? I don't know who contests the elections. The difference between the ANC and many parties is that we're not having a party that is revolving around a leader. We don't do that. That's why when we say we're going to go to the regions and the provinces, we'll reach all the 9 provinces and 53 regions in 3 days because we are many. And we'll be talking to structures of the ANC everywhere. We're not a party revolving around a leader. That's the difference between the ANC and many other parties. I don't know which parties are those, but the ANC is different in that way. The call for the dissolution of Parliament, I would imagine that the Constitution makes provision on what should be done for a Parliament to be dissolved. So to stand up in a podium and call for the dissolution of Parliament, and we must all fall over ourselves and try to dissolve Parliament, will be unheard of. Actually, there will be no country existing. Let me emphasize that the reason that we say we will respect the decision and the judgment is because we're a constitutional democracy. We're not just a democracy that is based on who shouts loudest. It doesn't work that way. Anybody who wants to dissolve Parliament, there will be processes followed if you want to dissolve Parliament prematurely. So only that process will be acceptable. It will not be a call by opposition parties. And that's why the following question was also actually a very strange question. The opposition say this, therefore you are putting the ANC ahead of the country, as if what the opposition forces say constitute a country. What the ANC thinks is not part of the country. That's what it means, basically. Country is a space that is contested. The ANC will go out there, even in local government election, contest the ideas and ask for votes. Because in South Africa, I think we're one of the few countries that have elections every 2.5 years. Many people say we have elections every 5 years. We don't have elections every 5 years in South Africa. We have elections every 2.5 years. 2.5 years from the local government election, we'll have national and provincial elections. 2.5 years later, we'll go to local government elections. So this question of what the country is and who is society is not a question that we theorize and say it should be the voices of the opposition forces that constitute a country. Those who agree with us and those who support us are outside of the country. That is a distorted analysis of what society is all about. So the question of whether we put the ANC ahead of the country is a distortion and building a particular narrative, because you are asking a question of what was said earlier and was the subject of discussion in Parliament. You are bringing it back here with the back door in a way that is irrelevant to what we're talking about. If it is a call by opposition forces, it can be a call by the country. And therefore what the ANC says is outside of the country and is in some island. It's wrong. Yes, or in exile, yes. It's not in exile, we're here. We're contesting ideas every day, we're on the ground. We meet the opposition forces on the ground, and that will continue forever as long as we're having a democratic process that is based on party political contestation. Opposition parties disproportionate. You see, Tula says, if these arms of government would be dissolved on the basis of incidents, there are no arms of incidents. For example, let's take an example on the issue we're talking about. The Cape High Court come with a particular determination on the powers of the public protector. Do you say because the Supreme Court of Appeal changes that decision and therefore confirmed by the Constitutional Court, therefore must dissolve the Cape High Court as part of that arm of government and the state? Now, I think your starting point of saying two arms are said, they have not complied with what they should do. That's why it is stated in a particular way in the judgment that they have acted in a way that is inconsistent with the Constitution, which is less than the declaratory order that was called upon by opposition parties. So I'm leaving that. Calls from inside the ANC, what do we say to that? The ANC is the most democratic organization in South Africa. I can say that proudly. Even how we select our councillors, we're the only party that select councillors, take them to communities, they get chased away and then we come back and so forth. Other parties sit in a closed room of leadership and appoint councillors. And because we're democratic, people express their views within the structure of the ANC. That's why, was it yesterday? Yesterday, we met the commanders and commissars of Nkandla, who wrote a letter. One of them leaked it to the media. Okay, fine. That didn't stop us from meeting them and talking with them. The foundations, Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo Athlete, Katrata Foundation, write a letter, it gets leaked to the media. We still meet them and talk to them. So those views in the ANC cannot be represented by ENCA. They talk to us, and we always engage them. So the stalwart who called for the president to step aside will not call for the stepping aside of the president out there in wilderness. They will come to the ANC and say, because of X, Y, and Z, we are making this call. For example, earlier today, Comrade Sidney Mfamadi talked to the media I have spoken to him already. As I was coming here, Comrade Msimang was an analyst in one TV station. He's a stalwart of the ANC. How does he chop and changes his role as an analyst and a stalwart of the ANC? So when we talk to him, we must make sure that we're talking to an analyst or we're talking to a stalwart. That's a confusing role. Because if you are a stalwart of the ANC, talk on that basis all the time and be able to walk here and talk to us. He was part of the delegation that I'm talking about in terms of the foundations. That is now an analyst somewhere else. It's a different matter. So we're engaging structures of the ANC, and we're actually particularly interested to those who are angry, who are disaffected, disillusioned and disaffected by whatever happens in the ANC. And from where we're seated, we know that the choice is not between disillusionment and be able to be in the organization, is that you remain with the organization all the time. If there are problems, you must be part of finding a solution in the organization. You don't come to the organization when you like and you go out when you like and shout at the organization. I don't think that choice does exist. Does the ANC owe society an apology? If we're called upon to do that, we'll do it, though we're not party to that case. And deliberately so. And it was not a mistake that we're not party to that case. The ANC was not party to that case. It was a case against the state. That's why when the order comes, it doesn't say the president must reprimand the ANC among others. No, it says go and reprimand ministers. Okay, ministers. We have done and contravened whatever rules that are there in government. It's because the court understands the distinction between the party and the government and the state. It's not one. But if there was a call for us to apologize, we would. Though we are not party to this case, we're not a respondent, we're not an applicant, we don't build any projects of the state, we don't get involved in those things, though no projects are built from Lutuli House. Promise to shut down Parliament. Again, you see, that promise to shut down Parliament is as old as the promise to call for a vote of no confidence or impeachment of the president. It happens all the time. Parliament has rules. It will have to deal with that matter. The last question was, what will we say to the voters? We'll say many things. I don't know if I stand here and tell you what we'll say. I will invite you to come to PE on the 16th of April, because on that day we'll be launching the manifesto of the ANC. That manifesto will contain what we'll be saying to the electorate. And we'll use that manifesto to contest other parties. And I can promise you that we'll interact with our people, we'll explain ourselves, because we're guided by the wisdom of many of our stalwarts. We have not lost the fact that revolution is the people. You can do anything as long as you can make people understand. We understand that. So we'll be going out there understanding that we're not a party of saints. We're not a party of saints. We're a party of human beings who join the ANC, who get given responsibilities. From time to time, they will commit mistakes. It is our responsibility to go out to society and explain those mistakes. And if we must be thrown out of a meeting, we get thrown out of a meeting. As long as we're not assaulted. If we're insulted, nobody gets stolen because he's insulted. So we have a duty and a responsibility to go to those communities and explain the ANC. And whatever mistakes we commit, we go and explain them. That's what we're going to be doing in the campaign for election. So if you want to know what will we say, please join us in Nelson Mandela Bay on the 16th of April. Get yourself a copy of our manifesto A week later, we will know exactly what we will be saying to the electorate.
Thank you, Nopala. Like we are explaining ourselves to you. This really is going to be the last round. We normally do two, but I see there's some burning issues. Now take Karine first.
Start with people who didn't ask questions.
Okay.
If there are one or two other hands, you can take those who want to repeat themselves.
Okay, Kaya didn't ask.
Let me explain to you. I was a councillor for one term. One thing that was a rule was that you don't talk twice on the same item unless you are explaining yourself. So I think let's apply that rule.
You said we're explaining ourselves. Okay, Kaya will be number one. There's a gentleman at the back, number two. Ndate Mutlenyane, number three. User number four. In front of me, number five. I will take user number six.
Yes.
There's four. We're not going to finish. Okay, we'll take all hands, ne? And those are going to be the last hands. So number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, number 10. And then please, can we leave it at that?
Please,
thank you.
It's late in the day.
Please, no fun. Number 1 was Kaya.
Hi, good evening to you, Mr. SG. Kaya here from Kaya for News. Mr. SG, some opposition parties have been calling for a so-called uprising. For example, the EFF leader, Julius Malema, said they would take to the streets indefinitely. What's the ANC's take on that? Obviously, people might be agitated over that issue. And just another quick question. I mean, there are calls for a cabinet reshuffle in line with some ministers who might have contravened the laws. Thank you.
Can I please make a request that you don't ask a question that has already been asked? Okay.
My name is Nkandla from SABC. It was my first question. But just give us an update as to whether some of the senior ANC members have responded to the period of court or to come forward to make statements regarding the recent allegations that they were offered positions by the Contextualizing.
Number 3.
I just have one question as you. Did the ANC ever advise the president to take public protector's report on review? As you would have seen in the judgment, the judge basically said that the National Assembly took the law into its hands when it appointed other parallel processes to happen. And if the ANC never did that, why wasn't that followed? Because that would have perhaps saved a lot of costs.
The president in his apology also apologized for how long the whole matter dragged out for. I would like to know how the ANC feels about how long this matter has dragged on for. And just as an add-on to the question, do you have full confidence in the president's ability to understand and interpret the Constitution?
Number 5.
The High Court in the Land Court was given judges found that the president failed to uphold the Constitution. Many years ago, after the Cold country, so the whole president suddenly, after one judge, dealing with the president. Is the ANC afraid to report president Jacob Zuma just because they have a strong grip on the ANC and the faction that wants him out simply does not have the numbers to record it? And has President Jacob Zuma cost the ANC votes ever since he took the help? Thank you.
Thank you, SG. And my name is Maurice Moyo. One of the questions I just want to ask is Jacob Zuma above the ANC? Has he become
bigger than the ANC. We've seen a lot of scandals around him, and the ANC has not even taken one of the issues to a disciplinary committee of the ANC. Does this decision by the Constitutional Court not constitute lack of Zuma being taken to a disciplinary committee of the ANC?
Next one, Kevin.
Franz Wild again from Bloomberg. Seeing as nobody else wants to ask the question of what monopoly capital, I'll do it.
Are you representing white monopoly capital?
must raise that question.
You know, in many countries, after a ruling such as this, the president would have resigned. What do you think investors and rating agencies watching make of all of this? And a second question, nearly 2 weeks ago you told us that the ANC was, or that your office specifically was starting an investigation into the alleged undue influence of the Gupta family. Could you give us an update on that? I mean, have you already seen lots of people? How's it been going?
That has been
asked already. Okay.
Thanks for being nice, appreciate it. Two questions. One question's kind of been asked, but I was one of those veteran journalists who around 2008 when the ANC recalled former President Nkandla on the basis of a judgment which some said was less severe than this judgment. Is it experience or inconsistency that the ANC is absolutely accepting apologies now? And another question, South Africa's got one of the most vibrant democracies in the world, and we've seen that in the world and in the continent, and we've seen that with the judgment yesterday. What example is the ANC as the oldest liberation organization on the continent? What example do you think the ANC sets to the rest of the continent?
Yes. Please speak, Pauline.
Thank you. Because I've been berated, I'll phrase my question differently. If you've heard a lot about the VA, UFF, and impeachment, that's actually not the issue. None of us want to hear from it. We want to hear from the ANC. And I'll quote again from the Constitution. The President may have followed the wrong legal advice, but that does not detract from the legality of the action. And maybe to add on to Karim's question, by not acting against President Zuma, what does that say about the ANC? What does not acting against the President say about the top six? And what does that say of the ANC's view of the Constitution, which is fought for by the Constitution?
Okay, I think that's the penultimate hand. Oh, I had noted you as well. Yes, Ian?
No.
Tulasizo, no.
Sure.
No, Tulasizo, we're not taking brainwaves. The lady in the red and white. It's the lady in the red and white, no pan.
You want to note new hands now?
No.
I can see.
No, it's no new hands.
I can see you.
Hi,
Then I'm missing says, you know.
Yes, Ted.
I just have a quick question, so very follow on. The judgment was an indictment on the president, and so I just want to be clear: is the ANC leadership, especially the top five, are you
Six. Top six.
No, the top five.
We are six.
There are 6 of you, but the 5 that joined the meeting.
We are 6.
Okay, the top 6. Is the top 6 satisfied that the president, who was found to have been inconsistent with the very constitution he was meant to protect, that he is still fit to lead the Republic of South Africa? Is that what we said?
Okay. You were the last time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would the ANC consider, given the grave nature of this judgment, calling for a snap election alongside the local elections, so having national, provincial and local elections to restore faith in the National Assembly and the Executive? The other point which I'd like to take you up on is the role of the ANC, to the House, your office in particular, in regard of the justification that you've made of using the majority in the House to push through things rather than the criticism that comes from within your own ranks, the strength, the moral strength or superiority of your argument. And that if you did accept that was a failing on the part of the legislature, in particular your MPs, would you then not believe that the nation deserves an apology from the ANC?
That's it. I can feel the absence of Zizi now. Seriously. Because Kusela has a soft heart and wants to accommodate as much as possible. Some opposition parties call for an uprising. I haven't heard that. Okay. Not unless mobilizing people is equal to uprising. I haven't heard that. I heard a call for mobilization of people in support of their views. That is what should happen in a normal society. Your views, you mobilize society, you mobilize people. That is not a call for an uprising. When it becomes a call for an uprising, we'll give you a description of that. You see? Because that phenomenon has a description in the world. When we talk of color revolution, we talk of that. I have not heard that in this instance. That's my answer to that one. Cabinet reshuffle. Cabinet reshuffle is not called upon in the streets. It is done in a particular way when you reshuffle cabinet. And I think that is a tested way of cabinet reshuffles. Let's not invent new ways. Otherwise, if we can do that, ministers will be very vulnerable in the sense that in the execution of their work, they will trample people on the wrong side. Then that person can call for the reshuffle and then people get reshuffled. It should not go that way. Have the members of the ANC responded to the call on the Gupta saga? You want an update? Somebody else want an update on that? We have not called this meeting for that. This briefing is not for that. It is for the judgment. But I can also give you an answer in few words. People are responding. Full stop. Don't ask for an update. Why should we give an update to you when we are given a task by the National Executive Committee of the ANC? Before we report to that structure, we give an update to the media. But the only thing that I can say is that people do respond. Okay. I don't know overwhelming what is number will that be. They are not in hundreds and thousands. So I don't know what overwhelming will be in this regard. But people do respond. Did the ANC ever advise the president to take the report on review? That is not what the ANC advised the president on. What we raised at a particular point, in advice to our caucus, we said, listen, there are two reports from two institutions of the state, one from the Industrial Committee and one from the Public Protector. The only way you can actually reconcile these two is by taking it on review, and that is through the judiciary. Now, you see, when you say that as the ANC, Parliament is its own process, it will take its own processes. But that view came out of the ANC, that listen, not this report only. We said there are two reports. The body of the two reports is not different. The difference is on the determinations. Take this to a judiciary review so that you reconcile that those determinations. And we left it. It didn't happen. Has the process took too long? What does the ANC say? Our response to this has been consistent all the time, Tolasis. That once processes are in institutions, the ANC will not poke its nose in those processes. We've been saying that all the time. Whether it is in Parliament, whether it is in court, whether it is in any other process or that is institutional, we don't get there and interfere with that process. And we think that is a correct, principled position on the part of the ANC. If you say we should not do that, we should interfere, I can tell you we'll come back to a media president. You will be asking a question of why does the ANC run departments or ANC interfere with process in institutions? That is where we are. You know, when you are raising the question of 1 judge versus 11, I've read that over and over in many newspapers. Maybe you are the author of it. I don't know who wrote it. I've read it over and over. And my view is that that question is mischievous. Let me tell you how mischievous it is. I want to explain to you. Because you say, if the High Court sits, there is 1 judge, it becomes less of a court. Once there is a full bench, that becomes the court. And I think that is distortion of how the judiciary works. If 1 judge gives a judgment, that judgment must be respected. If a full bench gives a judgment, that judgment must be respected, because it is not the 1 judge or the 11 judges, it is the judiciary and the processes that go through that system. That must be respected. So that question from where I am is a mischievous question. Can I tell you, it's looking like what? Sometimes people say when they talk about the president, he has just been elected by few in the ANC. Therefore, he is not elected by a big number in the country. Mischievous. It's a party political system. If you want to change that, change it. Okay? Take the idea into the public discourse. Let South Africans debate it and change it. We go to constituency system. Wipe up all the smaller parties. We will remain with 2, 3 parties in Parliament. Fine. To me. So, when people ask questions that look logical, but they do not make sense, I always forgive them. So you are actually forgiven. No, and that's a question. Problem here, you like running ahead of yourself. Don't run ahead of yourself. I'm answering your questions, question by question. Okay. You ask us whether Comrade Jacob has costed us votes. What I will never do, I said earlier, we are not a party that revolves around an individual leader. If there is a loss of votes, I cannot be exonerated as well. I'm part of that leadership collective. If we lose votes as that collective. Okay. Now, if you want to see it as a cost of President Zuma, then it means that we are part of that collective that is elected with Comrade Zuma. If votes are lost, we can't stand on the side and be clean and say the person who's in the dirty water is President Zuma. It can't be. It doesn't work that way. If we lose votes, we lose the votes as a collective. Okay. Now, if there is that above the ANC, he is not above the ANC, he is the leader of the ANC. I don't know where does the ANC sit and where does President Zuma sit. He is the president of the ANC. So he's not above the ANC, he's the leader of the ANC, alongside a collective of leadership. That's why in the ANC, because other people don't understand how the ANC works, You will have the 6 officials. They are not the final arbiters. There will be the National Working Committee, which meets every 2 weeks. There is the National Executive Committee, which is the highest decision-making structure between conferences. That is the leadership of the ANC. So I don't know who can be above the ANC in that regard. And if you say, why no action, I don't know what you understand of the processes within the ANC. You see sometimes the poetic license of writing gives you a right to talk about things that you basically don't understand, you have no clue about. But we can't take away that journalistic license from you. You're good, you write about things you do not know and try to be specialist in them. You see, that's why I'm giving you what we met at 6. On Monday we'll go to the NWC. Because we think that the issues that we're talking about are weighty, we make it extend and say every NEC member who can attend must attend. Because we believe in the collective wisdom of more brains in the African National Congress. And when we could deal with difficult issues, we move to that direction. And the reason that we make it extended NWC is because the next NEC is in May. So you can't wait for that NEC to deal with complex issues. You extend your NWC so that NEC members must come. Provinces can be represented. Then you are having access to a pool of leadership of the ANC to deal with a complex matter. So what we are telling you today is not the final word. It's what we are going to take to that NWC. If the NWC is the right route to take, we'll continue with it, then proceed to the provinces and the regions. That's where we interact with the branches. That's how it works. White monopoly capital. What confused me is white monopoly capital and what would happen in other countries. You make that interchangeable. Now, you see, that question reflects the notion of South Africa, which is partly European and partly African. That thinking still prevails today, where other people think that sometimes they say South Africa and the continent. As if we're somewhere and the continent stands somewhere else. And when people talk about some of these things, they must actually talk about experiences that are relevant. Let me give you an example. I would imagine that when the US attacked Iraq, for example, one of the companies that supplies arms there, one of the key shareholders there was the Deputy President of the United States. Okay. No noise was made about that because it is from a powerful country. It's not a major issue. Now, white monopoly capital should determine who should step down and who should not step down. Because we are in a developing economy. I listened to the CEO of the Banking Council. And I listened to him talking. And I made a conclusion that as we meet stakeholders, we must meet the Banking Council. Because it can't be about satisfying the Banking Council. The Banking Council has the right to express views, but it must appreciate that their views don't get into a tabula rasa where there's empty news, empty paper. You just write by the time the Banking Council has arrived. It will throw its ideas, they will be contested. Others of these ideas will be contested by that mobilization in the streets. But those ideas are protecting monopoly capital, and people will take to the street and contest them. And that space must be created in South Africa. Now, what example do we put to the continent as the oldest liberation movement? As you described the ANC as the oldest liberation movement, you didn't add another qualification. That is the second youngest democracy in the continent. So it is the arrogance of South Africans in the majority where they think that was the oldest liberation movement. Therefore, the continent must be looking upon us for anything. We must learn from the continent because we're the second youngest democracy in the continent. The only last born is South Sudan. If there was no South Sudan, it would be the last born in the continent, and therefore have a lot to learn from the continent. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, a group of citizens of Uganda who are in South Africa walk into this office, say, want to march on you because we don't like the election of Museveni. And I said to them, bring them in. They come in and I ask them, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to take a plane here and go and tell Museveni in Uganda to step down? I said, no, that's not what we're saying. But it reflects this arrogance of South Africa being this old liberation movement that must tell everybody in the continent. We don't subscribe to that narrative. It's a dangerous narrative. If we follow it, we will be isolated and marginalized in the continent. We are part of the continent, oldest or not oldest, second youngest or not second youngest. We are part of that continent. We must learn from that continent. If there are lessons that can be learned from us, good, they must be learned from us. But it can't be, what lesson do you give to the continent? It's a wrong starting point. Indictment against the president. What do the others say? Can I tell you, one thing I always tell people is that, in leadership, there's one important principle that you must never give up. That if you are part of that leadership and mistakes are committed, never try to exonerate yourself. Step aside and say, it's them who are committing those mistakes. You are part of those mistakes, irrespective of what your views were. Let's give one of the questions was it unanimous? Does it matter if it is unanimous or not? If you have a different view, you get to a meeting of a leadership that you are part of and your views are defeated. It's not your responsibility to go out there and say, no, I have a different view, but this is the decision. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so if it's a serious indictment, it's a serious indictment on the leadership of the ANC. And you must take responsibility for that. And when you take that responsibility, you take responsibility for things you know and things you do not know. You see? It's a very painful exercise if you don't understand it. But when you understand democratic centralism and loyalty to your decisions, you live that life for a long time and you never regret it. If there are mistakes, own up. If there is glory, don't even jump high. Keep quiet and bask in the sun. When there are problems, own up. Do you get my point? That's how it works. Now, snap elections, there will be no snap elections. Okay? There will be no snap elections. Come again? There will be no snap elections alongside local government elections. We're going to the local government elections now. Now, using the majority through the House, what is democracy? So there's a narrative in South Africa that says the ANC must be ashamed that it has a majority. That narrative is dangerous because one day, somewhere into the future, when the ANC is no longer majority, when we remind you that, listen, majority must not count, you must go and contest elections as the ANC, but go to the House and be individuals. It doesn't work in any party. Even the opposition parties don't do that. When they disagree with us, they disagree with us as blocks of opposition parties. When they walk out of parliament, because one member is kicked out of parliament, they do that in solidarity of that member.
Does it make it right?
No. All I'm saying is that the system is party political system. We contest election as the ANC. If I'm an MP of the ANC, I disagree with his positions. Because there's always a reserve list, I must resign. A member who is loyal to the party and understand the party must be in that parliament and represent the party. It is always used against us to bash us, so yeah, you are abusing your majority. You are not abusing your majority. That is how it works in all democracies. You can go to the developed world. Sometimes you hear that there's a revolt of backbenchers and so forth, but that revolt of backbenchers is managed in the party. We are not different. It is right. Our majority we must use unashamedly.
Judge criticizes that.
It can criticize. A judge is not elected, is appointed. He may not understand how democracy works. That's why it is a different arm of the state. So we can't treat judges as if they are from some heaven somewhere. There are elections. We go and contest elections, we get elected. If you are a majority, you are elected on the basis of the policies you are promising. That's what you must execute. You cannot go there and become a free agent as you like. Otherwise, there will be no parties. The ANC, when it is as a majority, anywhere it must use this majority unashamedly. Okay? Everybody else would do so. It's not because it is the ANC. Anybody else would do the same.
You're acting against the Constitution.
You're not going to have
You're acting against the Constitution.
I think, do you want a debate or you are in a media conference? No, it's not in the PAC.
No, we're not going to take any more questions. I think the SG has spoken in depth. We've
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, John.
Thank you so much for coming.
Hello, John. Hello, John.
That was the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Gwede Mantashe. He's read a statement on behalf of the ANC following the President's earlier announcement that he made, where he apologized for the confusion and the anguish caused in the way that he and his government handled the Nkandla matter. But he said that he didn't do anything wrong intentionally and that he apologized, and all sorts of processes will take place now and consultations to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then enter Gwede Mantashe, stage right.